do? Today's subject is going to be stretching. We're going to talk about stretching and its relationship to an active lifestyle, and we're going to talk about stretching and its relationship to a sedentary lifestyle. So when I talk active lifestyle, I'm talking about the actual breaking down and the repairing of the muscle structure, and when stretching is appropriate. When I'm talking about a sedentary lifestyle, I'm talking about a posture that's being held for a chronic period of time. So like sitting at a computer desk. The reason why I think it's so important to understand when to stretch is because if there's pain management involved, you can definitely aggravate an area through stretching. Let's get into the athletic aspect of things. Through athletics and chronic repetition, what happens to the muscle structure is it breaks down and it repairs. But sometimes through repetitive stress, that muscle tissue can actually repair with a form of scar tissue. So what happens when you generate scar tissue? We're going to use this area as a reference guide. So let's say that I've broken down this muscle, I've put a lot of repetitive stress onto this muscle, and I've generated a little bit of scar tissue here in this area. So the natural fiber alignment of muscle is going to be parallel fiber direction. So in the case of the bicep, it's going to be up and down this way. When I generate scar tissue, that tissue actually forms in almost like a crosshatch structure, right? So what happens is my range of motion becomes a lot less fluid. My range of motion becomes decreased because there's pulling in this area. Think about it. Imagine the structure lining in a fiber direction, and then halfway through the structure, you've got fibers that are running all sporadic. What happens is when it's trying to go down in a fiber direction, it's actually pulling at this little adhesion right here. So through repetitive stress, you can generate scar tissue. Scar tissue creates less fluid range of motion, right? So over time, my range of motion is going to decrease if I don't do the proper rehab for this muscle. Now, on top of the scar tissue, you also have a connective tissue. The connective tissue is what gives your body its shape. So if there's an imbalance in your posture, most likely it's going to be coming on the connective tissue level. So above that scar tissue and around every fiber in your body, you have connective tissue. That connective tissue is going to become almost adhered to that scar tissue, right? So not only does it affect this area, but the connective tissue is also creating an imbalance with the surrounding areas. So maybe one day you wake up with shoulder pain and wonder, what the heck is going on here? And it's going to all be in relationship to either that scar tissue that's happened, that's accrued from repetitive stress or an active lifestyle, or it's going to be coming from a sedentary lifestyle, where we tend to hold our posture in a poor manner for a long period of time. That also creates imbalance. Now let's get into the life of a sedentary person. So let's say you work at a computer desk, right? You're sitting here, and this is going to be in reference to pain management. You're sitting at your computer desk, right, typing away, 8-hour shift. Most of us don't have very good posture, and if we do, it's not going to last for an 8-hour shift. So what happens is over time, we tend to get like this, right? We tend to become too relaxed, right? But for 8 hours, what's happening? When you look at the structure, first of all, my legs flexed. My hamstrings are going to be held in a chronically shortened state. My quads are going to be in a lengthened state. Now, if you look at my back, all of my back is going to be lengthened and arched forward. So as far as shortening, we're going to have shortening in the hamstrings, the hip flexors, the abs, the chest, right? And then the back of the neck. We're going to have lengthening that's occurring in the quads, the glutes, all of the back, and the front of the neck. So if you're getting pain in your low back, think about it. Think about it. If you're getting pain in your low back from a seated position for a long period of time, the last thing you want to do is reach down and touch your toes. That's the last thing you want to do. That's only going to aggravate the issue because it's already being held in a lengthened state for a long period of time. So what you want to be stretching is you want to be stretching those areas that are being held in a shortened state, right? So a lot of times sitting at a computer desk, you can feel pain in the neck. Why is that? Most likely because it's been contracted backwards and it's being compressed down for long periods of time. So the last thing you want to do if you're used to being in a seated position is bend your neck back to create a stretch. You actually want to drop your head down to stretch this area. You don't want to further compress an area that's aggravated, that's in pain, that's inflamed. If you're doing this as a stretch, That's wrong. You want to be bending your back, right? Just gently, just to alleviate that chronic flexion, right? Just to get things a little bit more fluid. Then you want to stretch your hamstrings. Then you want to stretch your hip flexors. Then you want to stretch your neck by bending down. Now, as far as pain is concerned, when you hold the tissue in a lengthened state, it adapts to it. It'll convert to that state. You're going to create an imbalance. So if you're looking to alleviate low back pain from a seated position for a long period of time, don't stretch your back. You want to stretch your hip flexors. If someone on the internet is telling you to stretch an area that's in pain, do not give them your time of day, because pain could come from several issues, right? Lengthening being one, right? That scar tissue being another. So it's important to understand the anatomy and the structure. It's important to understand kinesiology. It's important to be able to look at yourself and tell where your imbalance is. If you're experiencing pain in a sedentary position, generally speaking, that pain is going to be coming from an area of weakness. Generally, an area of weakness is going to be over-lengthened, right? Because the opposing muscles are going to compensate and they're going to be pulling into a shortened state. So you're going to have one area that's shortening and you're going to have another area that's lengthening. The areas that can't hold posture are generally going to be weak compared to its opposing muscle group. So if you're stretching a weak area, you're going to aggravate it because you're going to shorten the shortened position more and you're going to lengthen the lengthened position even more. So what you want to do is you want to shorten the lengthened position and you want to lengthen the shortened position. That's for pain management. Athletics, you want to stretch to break apart the scar tissue. A sedentary lifestyle, you want to stretch to create proper balance. If you're getting pain, pain is generally going to be from an area of weakness. If you're stretching a weakened area, you're going to be aggravating the problem. So stretch your shortened, contract areas, stretch your areas that have accumulated scar tissue, and strengthen the areas that have been weakened and shortened. Most important tips that I can give you. Also, make sure you're drinking your water, because if your connective tissue isn't fluid, nothing's fluid.